Hello. The extraordinary Jan Richardson has written many blessings and prayers. For our opening and our closing today, I'm going to divide one of her creations and share this with you as a way of us entering in and a way of us departing. To all that is chaotic within you, let there come silence. Let there be a calming of the clamouring, a stilling of the voices that have laid their claim on you, that have made their home in you, that go with you even into the holy places but will not let you rest. Let there be a stilling. Let us hear our lives. Let us listen with wholeness and feel the grace that fashions us in this moment, and let what distracts you cease. And in this moment, let us pay attention. Even though our minds are racing, let us pay attention. Even though our hearts are beating, let us pay attention. Let us worship our God.
We gather together to worship on the land of the Wurundjeri people. As we gather, we acknowledge that the wattle, the cockatoo, and this bend in the Burrarong River was taken without consent or negotiation. We give our respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, and we pledge ourselves to work alongside these First Peoples to achieve a just future for all.
For our reading today, you get to hear the sonorous voice of the Reverend John Rickard, who I have heard it said does possibly have the voice that sounds most like the voice of God, if you're in a Charlton Heston movie. So let's listen now to John.
A reading from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 20, the parable of the workers in the vineyard. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them into his vineyard. About 9 in the morning he went out and saw others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. He told them, "You also go and work in my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. He went out again about noon and about 3 in the afternoon and did the same thing. About 5 in the afternoon he went out and found still others standing around. He asked them, "Why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing?" "Because no one has hired us," they answered. He said back to them, "You also go and work in my vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last ones hired and going on to the first." The workers who were hired about 5 in the afternoon came, and each one received a denarius. So when those came who were hired first, they expected to receive more. But each one of them also received a denarius. When they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. "Those who were hired last worked for only 1 hour," they said, "and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day." But he answered one of them, "I am not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Or are you envious because I am generous?" So the last will be first, and the first will be last. This is the word of God.
So for our children's talk today, we are going to look at this story from the perspective of a child, because children feel things to do with justice very keenly, and they also get very worried about whether or not there's going to be enough of everything. Doesn't sound like adults at all, does it? Let's watch. Once upon a time there was a little girl, and she loved her mother as much as the sun and the moon and all the stars wrapped into one. But one day her mother told her that she was going to have a baby, and that there would be a new life in their world to love and be loved by. The little girl was very worried. She felt sad and alone. She felt like she had fallen into the bottom of a deep well. She felt like the tears would never stop streaming from her eyes. What if there was not enough love to go around? The new baby was born, and the little girl still felt very worried. She stood on the edges of her life. But wait, what's that feeling? That feeling inside her heart, like expansion, like explosion, like love. Once upon a time there was a little girl, and she had a baby brother, and she had an amazing mother, and there was enough love for everyone. So for our reflection today, I thought I would break up the monologue, which is my voice, which I know is a very lovely voice, but still, even between friends it can get a little... Anyway, I thought that we could expand upon the text with some voices from our community. So today we have Paul Banks, who's in his first year of studying for the ministry and is a carpenter and a father and a musician. And we have Adriana, beautiful mother and poet and activist, who is about to hopefully enter into her first year of studying for the ministry and who's currently doing supply over at Habitat. And we have the gorgeous Pearl, who is our very own resident artist in this place. And all of them were given the challenge to look at this story of grace and who comes first in 2 minutes. And this is what they came up with.
Okay, so we know this one, right? Landowners and workers, labourer, first thing in the morning, no surprises. Habit, order, expectation. Enculturated, indoctrinated, colonised. The ready, the strong, the first pick of the football team. And then we know how it goes, right? 9, noon, 3 and 5. Every break, every chance, the landowner comes back. She comes, he comes, they come. More workers, more hands, the harvest is ripe, so ripe. Some immediacy lay here, some great sense of import, like the concrete truck is here and waiting, the mix is going off. There's some urgency, some attentiveness to the season or the hour. Something's at stake. Friends of mine missed the signs of a changing climate, and a late frost wiped out half their vineyard's harvest. The landowner knows the land and reads the sky and knows there is so much work to do. We're gathering the people, all who are willing, no prejudice left, unreconciled. Those have been turned away, outcast and slow, aging or weak. Come, Indigenous, come, immigrants, lower caste or homeless or hungry. The marginalised, the ostracised, recovering victims of genocide, the bruised, breaking, the broken and bleeding. Come, homeless, come, valueless. We're here, ready and waiting. Invisibles, the sceptical, untrusting, but somehow willing.
When my oldest daughter was very little, she drew a picture of a baby bird falling out of a nest. The nest sat in a tree, and inside the nest there were 2 brand new eggs. And there was another bird, which might have been the mother bird, sitting, watching all of this from a branch. Now, it was unclear whether or not the mother bird had kicked the baby bird out of the nest, or if there was just no room in there anymore because of these 2 other eggs, and the poor little baby bird had fallen. Now, because I'm a very good mother, I asked her to talk to me about the picture. Who's the baby bird? I asked. That's me, she said. And who are the eggs? I said, already knowing the answer to my question. I don't know, she said, and turned away in rage.
When the pandemic happened, everything moved to computers. Now, I'm not a complete no-hoper when it comes to computers. I can do the email and a bit of typing and this and that, but this was completely different. You see, I was working at an organisation, been there for years and years, in the office, doing administration. And of course, when COVID happened, everyone had to work from home. And in order to do that, they had to set up new and very complicated systems that were simply too difficult. I tried, I really did, and the girls at the office were very patient with me. But in the end, when my manager called me and said, "We need to talk about your role," I made it easy for her and I just resigned. I thought to myself, great, early retirement, and I pulled out the paintbrushes and the knitting and that Ottolenghi recipe book that my daughter had given me for Christmas. And I tried to keep myself occupied, I really did, but in the end I got bored and I got lonely and well, this was the worst thing of all. I felt completely useless. I couldn't even babysit the grandkids anymore because of all the restrictions and everything. I heard about this thing called the JobKeeper scheme, and the government was going to pay the wages of people who had been let go because of the pandemic. And I thought, well, maybe they'll call me back. And I saw that some of my colleagues who had also been let go were getting called back. And so I began to check my email all the time and check my phone and wait for that message from my boss, but it never came. Eventually, I did get a phone call, and it was from someone I had never heard of before, from an organisation I had never heard of before. They must have got my details from some recruitment firm I had applied to years ago, because they offered me a role. And they said, "Can you start tomorrow?" And I said, "Of course." And I tossed my paintbrushes aside and booted up the computer and began at work. And it was tough, but we figured it out. And the strangest thing happened. Yesterday I checked my bank account and my pay had gone in, but it was far too much. It was as though I had been paid all the way through the pandemic, and I'd only been working for the last 2 weeks. I called my new boss up and I said, "There must be a mistake." And she said, "There's no mistake. We have decided to be generous." Well, now I am completely confounded.
In today's story, the workers that have come last get exactly the same love as the workers who came first. Now, this fundamentally seems to us at some core animal level to be deeply unfair.
God describes his kingdom as a vineyard. Here is the gate. At times, we're number one. We're first. Big and strong. We're picked first for the team. We're ready to work, and we're ready to work hard. And then everyone else comes. And then sometimes we're number 7. We're last. We've been up all night. We're tired. There's a crying, hungry baby because we didn't get any work yesterday, and we've just been idle for so long. We're just happy to be let inside the gate. And when you're number 1 and you hear that the last will be first, you think, that's not how this goes. The first is first. First come, first served. Survival of the fittest. So why is the first now last? I've worked the hardest and I shouldn't be at the back of the line. I deserve more than this. Oh, I get it. I just saw that number 7 got paid the same amount, and so we're all being paid on how long we've been here. I get it. Great. I'll be getting more. But when you're 7 and a coin is pressed into your hand, you fall to your knees and you say, "Thank you. Thank you," and you humbly accept what is given, and you make your long way back home to your hungry baby. See how close 7 is to the ground, and see how far away everyone is. In order to leave, they're going to need to let go of that in their hearts. 6 is just a bit resentment. 5 has some pride. 4 maybe feels a bit jealous. And 3 is wondering, is this fair? 2 ponders what the point of arriving early is. And, well, 1 has looked over it all with seething anger. 1 knows it's worth more than this. See how far they've had to fall. See how much they have to let go of in their hearts before they can leave. In God's justice, grace does not look fair. It turns things upside down and calls for an inward change. Maybe the vineyard is about what's in your heart and what's standing between you and the generosity of God.
I was listening to my 3 girls talk the other day. They were rolling around on the couch and the beanbags, and the oldest one said, well, I've been here the longest, which means that she's loved me the most. And the other 2 proceeded to throw pillows at her head and yell, that's not true.
It could have been a handout, but it wasn't. Come and work. Yes, you all, come. Dignity, equality, opportunity, empowerment. And we rejoice, don't we? An unconditional invitation, every chance, every break back to the market. But we're missing something. Who are we in this story? Daybreak? Are we noon or 9, 3 or 5? No, dear friends. This is a kingdom story. Dear, beautiful middle class, healthy, wealthy, and white, dear heteronormative patriarchal Australia, we're the landowners.
I remember when I gave birth to my second child. The whole way through the pregnancy, I was gripped with this terrible fear that I was not going to be able to love this brand new baby the way that I loved her sister. I was worried that my heart would not expand. And for a few hours after she was born, I looked at her and a kind of terror gripped my heart, and I felt this terrible grief for this new baby who was not going to be loved in the same way as her sister. Hours later, as I looked into her tiny and very serious face, I felt a love that had been absent up until that moment, literally exploding in my heart and flooding out, stretching like a universe unfurling, like a pulsing, like a wave. And the relief that rushed through me as I held this tiny child. By the time my third child came along, there was no longer any fear because I knew exactly what my heart was capable of.
This is God, politics, kingdom values, Basilia Theo, the kingdom of God. But I pay what is fair. What for your Nikes or Kmart shoes? Who do we hire? If you're late, don't bother coming in. This is the third time this week. I can't even understand him. I'm just glad to have someone I can trust. He's too young, she's not experienced, and then, well, what sort of message would we be sending? It's an old story, and it's still the dominant hand that we're playing. So dear Commonwealth, don't stop reaching out, making opportunities, crossing the boundaries, subverting society, breaking hegemony and patriarchy. Don't stop challenging complacency. And dear landowner, every chance. Dignity, equality, opportunity, empowerment, Commonwealth. Are we? We are the first and most offended. Or we are the last, reluctant, overburdened and overblessed. But most of all, we're the landowners, tireless or complicit. But for the grace of God go we.
This story that we heard today, it's just another version of the prodigal son. It's just another version of coming home. It's just another version of amazing grace. It's another version of baptism in rivers, and it's God saying, "You are my child. I love you." It's God saying, "I will give you endless grace, and I'm not keeping score here. There's no ledger book, there's no curfew. Just come home. Come home to me. It doesn't matter how late you turn up. I'm going to leave the light on. And I'm going to be standing in the doorway. Just come home."
Hi St Andrews, it's Heather Price here, and I'd like to introduce you to my song My Lord's Prayer. I wrote this song a few years ago when I was going through a few of the traditions that existed within my own church upbringing and looking at how I could bring some of it into a modern context, especially the ones that I found a great deal of meaning in. When I came to the Lord's Prayer, I really did find that it still spoke to me, that I looked at those lines and I could see such meaning for today's societies. And I wanted to put some words to it that meant that even my friends that don't go to church would be able to see why this prayer exists and has existed for such a long time. So I sat down and line for line tried to bring it into a modern day context, and this is what I came up with.
God, who in all things lives within, may your name be used for good and not division. all people know your peace, and your will be known by heart and seen in my deeds. Fill my heart each day and cleanse my soul of shame. In doing this, allow me to forgive others the same. Grace and love be the guide along my path. Eyes blind to idols of my mind, but not of my heart. For I believe that if we all reflect your face, no power, no ruler could be near as great.
We are blessed in this community. Blessed, maybe, I don't know if that's the right word. We are blessed with a collective noun of ministers. Now, I tried to look this up to work out what the collective noun of ministers was, and I couldn't find one. A chaos of clergy, a quarrel of clergy. You can have fun. This is a game that you can play for the rest of the day. Anyway, we have sharing with us in the prayers today the Reverend John Adams, and he's going to open his heart for us now. And I invite you to be still and to join with him in this space of prayer.
Let us pray. Loving and compassionate God, we seek your mercy and wisdom. We find ourselves in the midst of a pandemic, and it affects every aspect of our lives, from the most intimate to the most public. We mourn the loss of so many things, big and small. No family get-togethers for birthdays or anniversaries, no picnics, barbecues, dinner in a restaurant, a drink at the pub. No cinema or live shows or theatre. No hugging grandchildren or loved ones. The list goes on. These are the everyday, the routine, the mundane. And then there are those who have lost jobs, livelihoods, businesses. They experience economic hardship and uncertain futures. Merciful Redeemer, you are the God of small and large things. Give us patience and understanding. Calm our troubled spirits as we pray for recovery and normality. We bring before you the many who confront the prospect of death without the comfort of a proper funeral, without being able to hold a dying loved one's hand, or being present at the greatest moment of need. We pray for the dying and bereaved. Give hope, comfort, and peace, we pray. We pray for the most vulnerable, the elderly, the sick and disabled in this crisis. But we also give thanks for the amazing sacrifice and skill and compassion of doctors, nurses, health workers, and carers. We also worry about ourselves, that we may cause someone else's sickness, that we may be virus carriers. And so we wear masks and isolate and distance. And so we ask your forgiveness if we perhaps have unknowingly put others at risk. In isolation, we can give thanks for the internet, for Zoom, TV. These keep many of us linked to one another, enable many of us to remain employed, and bring school to thousands of children at home. We watch the case numbers rise and fall and anticipate and rejoice when thresholds are achieved. But we also see the enormous toll suffered in other parts of the world, where countries like India record 1,000 people a day dying from COVID-19. Our world is suffering terribly, and so we pray for redemption, for healing and recovery. God, you love us all. Breathe your life into our tortured world. As we grieve our mundane routines, the public spaces we cannot share, the kin or comrades we cannot grasp, give us patience, forbearance, and imagination to believe in better futures, futures that are as yet unwritten, but which we know are possible through you. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Our blessing, a continuation of the words of Jan Richardson. Let there come to an end what diminishes. Let there come to an end what diminishes and what demeans, and let depart all that keeps you in its cage. Let there be an opening into the quiet miracle that is your life. Let there be an opening into all that lies beneath the chaos, where you find a peace that you did not think was possible. Let you see the light that shimmers in the storm.
I am your true shepherd. I will lead you there, beside still waters. Come and meet me in the middle of the air. I will meet you in the middle of the air. I will lay you down in pastures green and fair. Every soul shall be restored. I will meet them in the middle of the air. Come and meet me in the middle of the air. Through the lonesome valley, my rod and staff you'll bear. Fear not this dark shadow. Come and meet me in the middle of the air. I will meet you in the middle of the air. a table shall I prepare. Your cup will runneth over. I will meet you in the middle of the air. Come and meet me in the middle of the air. In my house you dwell forever. You shall not want for care. Surely goodness and mercy will follow you. Come and meet me in the middle of the air. I will meet you in the middle of the air. Come and meet me in the middle of the air. I will meet you in the middle of the air.
It's been 29 Sundays. 29 Sundays where you and I and Mark and Pippin the dog, who is always in the church for the filming of the services, have come together to experience what it means to be a community outside of our bodies and online and in spirit. So in celebration of these 29 services, well, no, not in celebration actually, we're going to take a break next week. We're going to take a break because I'm going to take a week of carers leave. Because my dad is home and we are caring for him palliatively at home. And my sense is that this is going to be a little bit of a marathon for us all. And just to help us settle into this new way of being as a family, we're going to have a little break. So we will be back the following Sunday and totally look forward to being present with you all again. But for next Sunday, you get the Sunday off. And if you're in Melbourne, that probably doesn't mean very much at all because you can't go anywhere or do anything. But if you're in, New Zealand or the rest of Australia, have an awesome day and we promise not to hate you too much. Okay, we'll see you soon.